Hey, this is Andrew Long with journalismgis.com. Today I'm going to basically show you how to make a join. I have some spatial data and I want to combine it with an Excel sheet. This is great for taking data that you get from a source and then adding it to the locations of something. In today's case, I'm going to use airports. So I have some passenger data that I've gotten, and I want to add it to a shapefile of airports. And the shapefile is publicly available. And the data you can actually create yourself if you can get into Excel and create this. So the first thing I'm going to do now is, so I'm in, this is ARC 10. Again, this will work for earlier versions of ARC because it's basically set up the same. Over here I have where it has my layers. This is going to be where my map's going to be made. You'll see this big plus sign up here, and that's how I add data. So the first thing I want to do is kind of give myself some spatial location that I'm looking at. And since this is US data, I'm going to add a shapefile of the states. So I'm going to go to where I keep my my data, my shape files, and I'm going to add some states. So I add this shapefile, and I think this is tiger data from the census. So there I have Alaska and states map, basically just the shapefile. I've added it over here. You'll see it's a layer. It's got a weird funky census name. I'm just going to name it states. All right, and it's kind of green. I like to have these clear, so I'm going to click on the little colored box and I'm going to make no color and then hit OK. So now I've kind of got my spatial background. Now I'm going to add a point layer. So this is a polygon layer of states, and what I want to do is add a point layer of actual airports. And so I'm going to add that by getting my data which is on my desktop. And this is an airport shapefile. So I clicked the add button, and on any of this, if you roll over the stuff, it should tell you what it is. But I'm adding a shapefile of airport locations. So here we have airport locations in the US. And if we want to look at this data, we can right click on this and see where it says open attribute tables. And we can basically look at what's attached to this data. And right now, see, it's a point. It's right here. It says it's a point file. It has location ID, so it has KOA, so it's a three-letter acronym for the airport. It tells what it is. There's some different features. Airport. This is a seaplane base. It's the name of it. Some other stuff that what state is in, what county. These are things that are useful to attach to stuff. So if I was doing with Arizona data, I might just search for I could pull out all the Arizona airports and get rid of the rest of the whole file. So it's really kind of a way to look at to see what you have. And this is also important because a join. So if I'm going to take data from another source and join it to this shapefile, I need to join it on a similar aspect because the computer wants to because the computer wants to join them together, and so you're going to tell it what it's going to do. Now I've looked at my data, and I'm basically going to join on this location ID, the three-letter ID of the airport, because that's what my data is based on. So I just took a look at the data, and I can see what I'm going to join on, and now I'm going to actually add the data that I've created in Excel. And why don't we open that up for a second in Excel so you can take a look at it. So basically this is just a XLS file that has some data in it that I'm going to actually join to this shapefile. So here's what I've gotten. I have passenger data from 1970, 1990, and 2009. And I'm going to join this data to that airport data. Now you notice that it has an origin column, it has a name, and it has passengers. Now I'm going to join with this origin because it's just going to be easier to match things. So there's some couple things you need to keep in mind when you're joining data. Is that the computer is looking at it and matching it based on exact stuff. So spelling counts, the way the data is organized counts. Now origin right here is going to be the easiest because it's the 3-letter of the airport, which is what I had in that location ID. So we're going to kind of just add them together. Now a couple things with joins. There's also another data connection called relate. What we're doing is a join. It's a one-to-one. There should be one list of passenger for each airport. Now I do have different years, but I'm only going to actually add 1 year at a time. So you just have to understand that joins are basically joining data exactly. There's one point, one spatial point that's being attached to one data point, which is what we're going to do here. So now that I've looked at that, I can actually add that to ARC by using the add data. And so when I hit that, I'm going to go to, here's my passenger XLS, and I'm going to hit add. Now it shows me the different workbook pages. So there's the 1970s, there's the 1990s. Let's do 2009. So I'm going to add that data to my ARC here. I had already added one before. So we have 2009 data right here. Now you'll notice a couple of things. It's going to be in this list by source rather than this list by drawing order because we haven't done, it's not drawn, it's just data. So if you're looking for it, you're going to have to look in the look by source, and you'll see that it's listed here. Here's the URL for where it's at, and here's the data. Now we can look at this data like we can with anything else. So we'll just hit open. And when you hit open, it's exactly like it was in Excel. Here's the origin, here's the thing, here's the passenger number. And we can search and do things with that data. But basically, I just want to join that Excel sheet to this shapefile of airports that I have. So here's my airport layer. Let's just name this airport. All right, so I'm going to right-click on this, or on the Mac, double-click. I'm using a MacBook Pro. And so down here you'll see a thing called join and relates. And I want to join the data to this shapefile. So when I hit join, it's going to ask me some questions. And the first one is join fields in this layer will be based on. So basically it wants to know what are the fields that that I'm going to do this join with. And so since we looked at that data, we know that location ID is the three letters that we're going to join with. And I'm choosing the table. Since there's only one in there, it's only giving me a choice of one, is 2009. And I'm going to join it to the origin field because that had the 3 letters. Then it's going to give me an option to keep all records or to keep only matching records. I'm going to keep only matching records. Now the thing you have to understand about joins is you can unjoin at any time. So you're not really affecting your data at all. You're basically just storing that connection at that time. So at any further time you can remove the join and your data will be okay. So it's not like you're actually rewriting data or anything. But for this layer, I just want to keep the records that are actually joined. There should be about, I think there were 60-some airports. And you can also validate the join. Again, joins are, a lot of times joins are tough because if you don't have the right things to join on, it's not going to actually show you what you want, or it's going to give you an error. So I'm just going to hit OK. And now you'll notice that most of the airports have disappeared, and I only have about 60. I think there's 67 so airports in here. These are only the ones that had data attached to them. The rest of them didn't have data, and so they're not there. Now if we take a look at the attributes, so if we open the attributes, you'll see that it's only going to show you, I think it only shows you the ones that it's actually connected to. So, and we can still use this info button up here to look at our data, and it'll tell you what it is if you want to look at it. All right, so now that I have the data attached to it, which is useful, but now I want to make a map, and I want to show which airports have the most passengers in 1990. That's basically the map that I'm going to make. So now I want to actually do something with that data that I've added. So I'm going to right-click or double click on the airport layer, and I'm going to go to properties. And what we want to do is we want to go to the symbology. This is how we make our maps. And we're going to do quantities, we're going to do quantities, and we're going to do proportional symbols. So I want the circle to get bigger with more passengers. And the value that I'm going to base it on was in our data, and it's called passengers. And I have a min value and a max value. I'm going to kind of make this a little bit bigger so you can see. So I'm going to increase the size of the minimum circle to 10, and I'm going to hit OK. And when I hit apply, you'll notice that the spots on the map get redrawn based on their data. So these circles are proportional to the amount of passengers for each of those airports. And so now I can basically start to see how my map looks and where the most passengers are. And you can do some other things to this. You can change the transparency under properties and display. I can make the transparency something different so they kind of overlap each other. One thing that you should look at is that we didn't when we first made this. If I open up the attribute table and I scroll down, you'll actually see that, and this is why they call it a join. So if I look, my original shapefile only had up to counties. It didn't have these last 3 data points. These are the data points from the Excel file that I added in. So I have origin, description, and passengers. They are joined together. And now I can export this map file, export. I can make it an Illustrator file if you need to send it to your news art, or I can make it an image to put on the online. There's a lot of other things I can do with this map once I made it. Now that we've built this, the other thing that I was alluding to is that we can also remove the join. At any point we can just remove it and go back to where we were at. So what I want to do is right click on this and see where it says joined and relates. I'm going to remove the join. See, it keeps track of it. So there's 2009. I'm going to remove that join, and then I'm back to my regular data. I still have my airport shapefile with my airport locations, and I'm with none of the data that I wanted to do. So let's do this one more time. I'm going to add, this time let's add the 1970s. I'm going to add that data. It's right here in my list by source. I'm going to go back to my shapefile, my airport shapefile. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go to join and relates, and I'm going to create a join. I'm going to join the location ID. Now this time I need to change it to 1970s, and I'm going to join that to the origin because they're the same, and I'm going to keep the matching records. And when I hit OK, then I have just the airports, the top 67 airports in 1970 for the United States. Now I'm going to change the symbolization, so I'm going to go to Properties, Symbology, Quantities, Proportional Symbols. I'm going to base the proportion on just the raw number of passengers. I'm going to up my min value to 10 just to give it a little bit more size. Actually, I'm going to change my color, maybe blue. I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to hit Apply. And you have a map of the most passengers in 1970 for specific airports. So that's how you kind of do a join. I know it's now there are a lot of issues with, most of the issues are with matching your attribute that you're going to match on. If you're going to have problems, that's usually where it's at. Also, there can be issues with the way you set up your Excel. I'm going to put these files online so you can take a look at them and use them as a basis for practicing. All right, take care.